Oh, we go. Hello out there in internet land. It's your boy Ivan and my good buddy Joe, who you might recognize from the Wednesday Night Murder Hobos here on How to Kickflip a Horse. Today,
I
I'm going to be reading to Joe an essay that I wrote as part of what I'm calling Triple F Games. This will be Triple F Games number 3, and we're doing The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Joe, would you
yes,
care to start us off by telling us about your experience playing this game?
I'm a big fan of the franchise, as are most people with souls. Um, Zelda was, I think, my first NES as a 4-year-old or whatever came with the usual Duck Hunt Mario, but Dad also bought Legend of Zelda with the silver cartridge and played through that. And Zelda 2, the old weird side scroller. Link to the Past is probably my favorite of the entire genre
It's a good one.
series. All the N64 dudes, all the GameCube dudes, most of them. Never played Majora's Mask. Got to play that.
Majora's Mask
Um,
is also one of the ones that I missed.
yeah, there's like I think there's like another one in there somewhere. I played the old Game Boy reboot on the Switch recently, and that was fun. Breath of the Wild, I played
Oh, the
through.
Link's Awakening? Excuse me.
Yeah, that was a great port and change, really. And
It looked
I
cool.
played Breath of the Wild. I think I played it first. Probably put like 100 hours in it back in 2015, and I was pretty blown
That's
away by
interesting because it came out in
that.
2016.
The game
Traveled a
wasn't
year
it,
into the past.
or whatever it was. Whatever the Switch was new was when I got it,
Sure.
and and then I put it on the shelf for a long time, and then it was my COVID game. I got really bad COVID last July, right about now,
Hmm.
and I played it for like 15 days in a row, like 10 hours a day.
That's a lot.
Because I was like, I got nothing else to do. I'm just sleeping and playing this game.
Sleeping
And
and struggling to breathe.
yep, that is
Yeah,
in between unconsciousness is Breath of the Wild, so it's a special place in my dying heart.
sure. Uh, Ironic that it's called Breath of the Wild.
Oh yes, it wasn't lost on me then either.
Well, so it's safe to say that you enjoyed this game enough to put multiple hundreds of hours into it,
It's
and
you know,
you're not a noted masochist like myself who will put 300 games or 300 hours into games like Red Dead 2 and hate it the entire time.
no. I mean, I would, I wouldn't say that Breath of the Wild is even my favorite Zelda game, but it's for being modern.
Sure.
I think it was a nice twist, and the mechanics are good enough to keep me coming back. A lot of things are pretty dumb and annoying, but there's a lot of elements that I. It's one of those games that, like, once you learn the internal language of the game,
Mhm.
then it's an easy way to just sort of play around things like climbing or cooking or whatever. You just sort of start doing what you like in real life and ignore the fact that you could be a lot better at it. Just it's a game of hacks, I guess. And the one I guess the greatest thing I like about it is that you can do pretty much what you want to do while avoiding a lot of the pitfalls and a lot of annoying aspects of Zelda, except for puzzles, which is a even bigger part of Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
And it can get a little bit much sometimes. You're just like, I don't feel like rotating this dungeon around with my hands. I just want to like find
Right.
stuff
Just
and
just do it.
build
Just give me the heart
cars.
container. I don't want to sit here and play Banjo Kazooie on Xbox.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. But no, I mean, I liked it. I'd say it's of giant releases. It's up there. It's not my favorite, but
Of
it's
all
in
the
the
giant Nintendo releases, it is one.
yes. I mean, on a whole, I like the lore of Zelda better than Mario, but Zelda hits a little different. It's a little bit more, I don't know, fun in an adventurous way. Like Mario is just the same old silly shit, and
Huh.
Zelda
See, I
has
kind of
some.
one of the things that I would like that would make me not really compare Zelda and Mario, especially on like a lore thing, is like they both probably have like comparable amounts of lore, but Mario's, whereas Zelda's is always just like save the princess, save the kingdom, ride the horse, shoot the arrow. It's, you know, it's a very basic fantasy thing. Uh, Except sometimes they do it on islands or whatever. Sometimes they do it in the sky. Whereas Mario's like he's a Italian plumber from Brooklyn. Everything is fucking weird. No real reason, no explanation. His girlfriend bangs a giant reptile man. She has a legitimate child with him. Don't ask about it. Uh, there's dudes that are just bullets. There are sentient bullets that ostensibly love getting fired out of cannons all the time and fucking hate Mario. So like I don't know. I would like to see a Mario in the sort of Breath of the Wild style because I also think that sort of like that figuring out how to break the game versus figuring out how to use the things the game gives you to complete the game is much more an intrinsic part of Mario in my mind. Like
Yeah,
Mario games is where like speedruns come from. Legend of Zelda is where like action RPG games come from. As you
I
know,
just thought of Mario Death Stranding, where you're like carrying Yoshi eggs in the giant backpack around.
well, sure, but it would be Death Stranding Yoshi's Island
Yeah,
because Yoshi's carrying baby Mario around. Dude, did you play Death Stranding?
I played it enough to
some of
know
some
what
of the
it's
things
about.
that you said about like learning how to traverse the game, like how to like make the game work, made me think of Death Stranding. Death Stranding is actually what the previous installment of this series was about.
Oh,
Um,
wild! I had no idea. Now, Death
yeah,
Stranding is like how I like it so much. It's not, I don't like playing it. I sort of just like here is if you put an alien on Earth and you said video game, and it'd be like, okay, here's all the concepts of a game, but it doesn't really have to be about anything. Like it's just like because it's so
right.
foreign. The game's such a
But
lofty
it
concept.
really acts like it's about stuff.
Yeah, it really
And
does.
boy isn't it, it is not.
Mhm.
It's about 40 hours that you'll never get back, I think, is what it's ultimately about.
I
And
think it's a wild
it
exercise.
totally does read like an alien has read extensively about humans but has never like actually seen one or interacted with one and is just like, yeah, this is how humans act.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is what humans do. They live in cities and get mail. I don't know. You know, human shit.
yeah.
They
If
love
it wasn't
Monster Energy
created,
drinks and pissing where they shower.
yeah. If it wasn't created by who it was created by, I would say AI made that game.
Or like what's his name? Bennett Foddy, the Getting Over It dude.
Yeah,
You know that one?
I
The
don't know
game
that
where
one.
you're the little guy in the like cauldron and you can only move by pushing yourself along with a sledgehammer. That shit's nuts. And it's basically Death Stranding. It's just 2D and completely insane. But so yeah, now that we've got that groundwork set, we've already touched on a few of these things that I'm gonna get to in this here piece. But I think that's a good start. Joe, are you ready? Excuse me, to have me read at you for about an hour?
Prepared.
Amazing. And of course, obviously, feel free jump in, cut in, comment as you see fit when you see fit. I'm not about to get upset at you for interrupting me. So here we go. This is Triple F Games number 3, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild by Ivan Dellinger. This was written between March 6th, 2023 and May 1st, 2023. Spoilers, obviously spoilers for Breath of the Wild. Part 1, Intro. Here we are, a strange and vast world of fantasy. Our hero, a stern, mostly silent type, is tasked with tracking down and defeating a series of strange and ancient beasts in order to awaken a fallen princess. Our hero wields a sword and a bow, and sometimes rides a horse. Our hero can sneak and climb and leap in a vast open world full of discovery, ancient ruins, strange enemies, fun mechanics, and fascinating environments. Though I will say the story proper is fairly bare bones, the experience of playing and traversing the world is pleasurable enough that with only the slightest prodding, the player genuinely wants to get out there and see everything they can in this unique fantasy environment. Though you get access to all of the abilities, okay, bye, Joe.
It's a sneeze.
Oh, okay. Gesundheit. Though you get access to all the abilities you'll gain relatively early in the game, the requisite health and stamina upgrades notwithstanding, you'll find them more than sufficient to remain entertaining for the 30 or so hours it'll take to complete the game. I'm, of course, talking about Team Ico's Shadow of the Colossus, a game from 2005. What I'm here to talk about today, though, is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, a game from 2016 that does almost all the same stuff as a better game from 11 years earlier, but markedly worse. I'll say up top here that my experience with the Zelda series is far from exhaustive. From the GameCube era to the present, I basically fell off and have not since gone back and tried out any of the ones I've missed, so there's a lot of gaps in my history with the franchise. That said, the games I do have experience with are some of the most solid games on any platform that I can think of. Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, and Ocarina of Time are, at least in my opinion, some of, if not the best games on their respective consoles. They were broadly appealing without falling into lowest common denominator territory. The stories were simple fantasy rescue the princess adventures. There were maybe 3 important named characters in each of them, and there aren't really any underlying themes unless you want to get into dream interpretation for Awakening or causal loops for Ocarina. Just solid exploration, some light environmental puzzles, and fun hack and slash combat. The games themselves were so genuinely pleasurable to experience that their relative simplicity didn't matter, and they look, sound, and feel just as good today as when they came out. I have memories of playing Link to the Past at a babysitter's house when I was a small kid, maybe 5 or 6. I definitely didn't understand what was going on, and now that I'm thinking about it, I might have been even younger because I'm pretty sure I didn't know how to read while I was playing it. And I learned to read pretty early, but I digress. Link to the Past was so damn cool looking and fun to wander around in and explore that even in my subliterate larval form, I was enraptured. Link's Awakening was my next Zelda many years later, but imagine my satisfaction when it handily delivered an experience that transported me back to Link to the Past while simultaneously expanding on that formula, adding unique new challenges and being able to fit in my pocket. I remember at that point that me and Jesse, who went to middle school together, Jesse from our Now Thursday show, we were playing this game at the same time even, and we would trade tips and tricks pretty regularly, helping each other along when one of us made progress and the other one was stuck. Ocarina of Time, I believe only a couple years after that, or maybe even same time. My timeline's a little fuzzy there. I don't remember when those things came out or what order I played them in. But again, it did exactly what it set out to do while also teaching the entire video game industry how to really do third-person melee combat in a way that made sense and was fun. Like, third-person melee combat before Ocarina of Time is like this nebulous void, and after it, it's still pretty much just Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, N64 Mario did not teach us how to do that very well. It was definitely Ocarina that got us into it properly.
Right. Well, like the platforming in Mario 64, like that didn't show everyone how to do it as much as it showed that it could be done at all.
Yeah, exactly.
They were like, maybe don't do it this way going forward, but here's how we did it.
Locking on is pretty good. Good job, so.
Locking on works pretty well and continues to work pretty well. Let's see. It was around Ocarina of Time era that I fell off the Zelda train, with a few exceptions. From Majora's Mask up to the present, I only had any real experience with Phantom Hourglass on the DS, which I understand to be a sort of black sheep of the franchise. But what I thought was a really fun take on a stealthier, puzzlier Zelda. It was only recently, though, through the power of crime, that I was able to return after many, many years to one of the most critically acclaimed and universally loved installments of the series that I had enjoyed so much all those years ago. Every, Everything I read led me to believe that I was about to embark on one of the most transcendent and fulfilling video game journeys I'd yet embarked on. Ready to drop hundreds of hours into a majestic and expansive world stuffed with discovery, satisfying traversal, fun combat, interesting puzzles, cool dungeons, and all of the other things that I had previously enjoyed about literally every other game in the series I'd played up to that point. I did not enjoy The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild very much. Part 2. Themes and Writing. Now, I'm not going to front like the themes or the writing of the Zelda series has ever been its strong suit, but that's sort of always been the point, right? I always assumed that the goal was to have a broad, simple story that even literal children could enjoy. I'm not expecting political intrigue or philosophical rumination, questions on the legitimacy of monarchy or faith, or from whence power comes and the danger inherent to those that would wield power. But books like Earthsea and The Hobbit do have all that stuff and are ostensibly for children. And yet these books manage to present those ideas with the respect and gravitas that they deserve. Burp of the Wild does not give a single shit about any of that stuff. Initially, I was intrigued by the setup because it isn't every day that a game presents a world where the heroes have apparently already lost. That's a cool idea. I was eager to see how Ganon's reign had changed the land of Hyrule over the century that Link and Zelda were apparently in comas. But then I got out there and it was pretty much the same old Hyrule. Right? Colorful, friendly-looking Hyrule, save for the swirling black cloud of Ganon, I guess, off in the distance. After proving that you are, in fact, the fallen hero of Hyrule to a ghost king who seems to have a lot of powers that might be useful in a fight against a giant evil cloud pig, he puts you on a mission to go fight some giant Aztec steampunk animal robots and release the spirits of the other champions who fell alongside you when you lost to Ganon the first time, which happened, and I cannot stress this enough, 100 years ago. I cannot stress this enough because every goddamn plot NPC has a mighty need to regale you with the same story that Ghost King told you at pretty much the start of the game. You arrive in various settlements and towns strewn haphazardly around the map after traversing humongous open spaces populated mainly by rock columns, are told that 100 years ago, blah, 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 but since you're Link, you can probably go fight the robot with the help of some other NPC who talks like a C-tier anime dub, and an artifact that you won't actually get to add to your inventory, but only after you've gone and tracked that NPC down and done some other busy work. Can't help but point out that some of the busy work might have been able to have been done by literally anyone else besides recently comatose Link. We get a little cursory background on some of these characters we speak to here and there, but ultimately none of that matters very much. There's very little that winds up having much impact. It's just a bunch of special boys and special girls who can do the special thing because plot. The characters you meet are painted as the successors of the great heroes of old, but they don't do anything beyond taking Link to the first phase of the Divine Beast fights. They stand around in the background, they don't help Link in any domain but their own, and ultimately they're replaced by the original great heroes in the final sequence, as though those were the characters we were interacting with the whole game. Two-dimensional is perhaps too generous a descriptor for these characters. This cycle repeats mercilessly 4 consecutive times. After the previous 2 FFF games pieces I've written, I am hesitant to bring such a jinx on myself, as each subsequent game seems to somehow be more unbearable than the previous, but I exist to suffer, and so, this is the most boring game I think I've ever played. Aside from... What was that?
I said, oh my god.
Aside from stopping rain in one area of the map where the fish people live, who shouldn't give a shit about the rain, are making the divine beasts all face the same direction to barf on Ganon, nothing ever changes in this vast open world. There's nothing to see, and it all looks the same. The game misses a real great opportunity here, I think. They could have intentionally made the environments barren and the structures samey as a mark of Ganon's corruption. The sorcerer has inflicted blandness on the realm of Hyrule. We all work in shipping factories. Fine art has been replaced by AI. Fucking something. But the game again goes the toothless anime route, and we drop curtain on a tale of, I don't know, friendship, faith, extremely late game mulligans. At least that's what I assumed, because after the first half a dozen NPCs told me the exact same goddamn story, I started skipping every cutscene. It was just too boring and was bringing nothing to the table beyond more Final Fantasy X caliber voice acting. And remember, I trudged through all but the last hour of Death Stranding. The lesson here, I guess, is even if it takes 100 years, so long as you're the special boy, good can triumph over evil. Now you may be thinking, but Ivan, those last few sentences sounded a lot like the broad strokes of every Zelda game. And I agree, because I was thinking the same thing when I when I was writing it. There is, however, a very important distinction that I must make here, and that is Part 3, gameplay. There's four parts of this, just so you know. So yeah, any thoughts so far? Anything you want to drop in?
I also dropped all the cutscenes. Like, I was like, okay, wonderfully animated. I'm very sorry, but I skipped them even the first time around.
Yeah. They look cool. Like, everything looks cool. It's just insufferable to hear the same information more than like twice.
Yeah, and when not to spoil, but having to find all the photograph locations, I was just like, oh. No.
See, and like that's the kind of stuff that in other games I really enjoy, like the Batman Arkham games. I love going and solving all those riddles and all those Riddler puzzles and stuff. Or like in God, what's the other one that I actually enjoyed? Even in Red Dead 2, which I didn't like. The part that I did like was going around finding all the animals, like doing the little photo missions and stuff. Yeah, so good. I've played whole games about just that. Like I fucking love Pokemon Snap. You know, almost a perfect game as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but like maybe the Deku nuts was like almost the best part in a way.
Those were fun when you're like, oh, there's one of those little fucked up little flowers. I'm gonna get them.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get that climb up. I'm gonna get that little coconut man.
I need to make my 17 stamina meals so I can get to the top of this stupid cliff, but I'm still going to enjoy this part.
God, I hated the cooking. I hated having to have to feed Link and like make sure he wasn't cold and like.
I did like that. So that was kind of that mechanic was probably my favorite.
It was just implemented so bad. It would have been different if like if I could have opened the menu, been like, now I'm cooking, and he was like, sick, now I'm cooking. Instead of having to like go to the campfire, put a pot on it, open the menu to be like, hold the food, put the food in the pot, open the menu again, get the other food that you're putting in the pot. It was just like, this sucks. Like the game acted like its menu screen was the thing that everyone should be excited about. And it was just too much. It was too many steps between me and doing literally anything.
It should have been a shortcut. It should have been a shortcut or moddable, but Nintendo games are not ever going to be moddable. So
we'll get to that a little bit in this here part 3 gameplay. Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, Ocarina of Time. None of these really has much of a story beyond rescue the princess, save the kingdom, but the moment-to-moment gameplay experience is so good in each one that why you were sending Link to find items and vanquish foes was ultimately ancillary. The maps felt huge, even if they are quite small by modern standards, because they were densely packed with things to discover, and every discovery had meaning. If you found a new weapon, it was a big deal, and the possibilities opened by a bomb or a hookshot or hell, even a couple of new notes on the ocarina, were cool as hell, and sometimes legitimately awe-inspiring.
You know what? I could blow up the whole goddamn world with this thing.
We don't get that. Instead of unique items to solve environmental puzzles with or deal with enemies in new ways, we're given a handful of psychic magic or whatever that will allow us to make stuff float, stop time, add momentum to objects, freeze water, and maybe some other ones that were too boring for me to remember off the top of my head. And that was my biggest problem with these powers. I kept forgetting to use them outside of when the game very obviously required them, mainly in the shrines and boss dungeons. I've seen plenty of videos, as I'm sure we all have, of people using the powers in Zelda to quote unquote break the game in novel and exciting ways. But the thing is, the game never prompts this type of thinking. Not really. These abilities are more like toys than genuine mechanics, and the idea that they encourage the do anything approach that people seem to think it does rings hollow to me, when the only tailored challenges sort of fall apart on their own anyway. A bunch of times I found myself trundling around a shrine looking for a switch or something to interact with, only to realize, oh yeah, I can use the magnet thing, or I can make some ice here. It didn't give me a sense of discovery, it made me feel like a dumbass. The huge swaths of essentially empty terrain between these dungeons and shrines also does very little to encourage experimentation with the powers, mainly because there's nothing out there to interact with except bland, sheer rock faces. I will say that the shrine puzzles are pretty fun when they don't auto-lock themselves and once you remember to use the powers, but also it feels like there are hardly any of them. This leads to a lot of wasted time tracking down spirit orbs to upgrade your health and stamina when heart containers or stamina potions could easily have been placed as shrine rewards. Which leads me to my next gripe. There is so much goddamn busy work in this game. Everything takes about 5 times too long, from the aforementioned backtracking for upgrades to tracking down resources for side quests, finding swords, upgrading armor, and even cooking food. The game's favorite feature seems to be its menu screen, and it will take every available opportunity to make you engage with a menu instead of the game. Not that I was particularly eager to get back to the game, mind you. Very early, I found myself wondering how this game would have been received in a pre-internet world where people can't just look up every solution for every game because over and over again it utterly fails to convey any of its expected methodology in any meaningful way. I don't want to talk about how long it took me to figure out that I could deflect lasers from the Guardian robots. The timing of the combat was sluggish as well, making the parry mechanic difficult to utilize even once I knew about it. Early on, I found myself facing some centaur guy as part of the main story quest. I had about 5 hearts at that point and what I thought was a pretty impressive arsenal to use on this guy, and he just mercilessly one-shotted me over and over again.
Lionel.
Not yet.
Yes.
Yep. Fucking Lionel. That
Yes, they are.
huge rude jerk.
Yes, but majestic hunks.
It also, like, another big disappointment, you can't ride on those dudes. Like, what's the point?
No.
Why make
Why
him,
so
why
se-
horse shape if not mount?
Yeah, why so sexy? Too sexy. Too strong.
Why so sexy, horseman?
Yeah. He doesn't look like a Lionel.
Right. So yeah, not yet discouraged. Fool, fool, cries the chorus. I resolved to go around and do my puzzle chores in order to get some heart upgrades. 3 motherfucking hours and as many heart containers later, I go back to fight Centaur Guy and what happens? I get goddamn one-shotted again. It was at this point that I resolved to turn cheats on, particularly the infinite hearts option. What I found then was that even in my state of invulnerability, I still couldn't beat this centaur because I would run out of arrows and all my swords would break. Following this revelation, now fully disheartened and knowing that this game will not meet me on genuine terms no matter how much benefit of the doubt I was willing to extend to it, I turned on the infinite weapon durability cheat as well. With the tedium imposed by the hunger system, the temperature system, the potion system, and the item degradation systems eliminated, I shortly thereafter defeated my first divine beast at roughly the 20-hour mark. The other 3 beasts combined took me less than another 20 hours to defeat. I find this level of time sink egregious, to say the least. If fully 3/4 of your game amounts to busy work, I don't think you've made much of a game when we get down to it. That's four of the game's central mechanics boiled down to something the game has put in place with the express purpose of preventing the player from experiencing the rest of the game. And for the absolute life of me, I cannot understand why people seem to have enjoyed this game even a little bit.
What was your path? Which one did you play first?
I tried going for the elephant one first because at the beginning I
what I
believed
did.
that I could go to any of them, even though that turned out to not be true. Uh, unless I was
I
like,
went.
unless
Yeah.
I was literally Jesus Christ playing the game for the first time, I don't think anyone could actually do those things in any order. So then I looked at
I
the
did.
internet and was like, what order am I supposed to do these guys in? And then I went and did the easy one first.
First time I ever played it, I did the elephant one first in the desert, and I was like,
Did you actually get over there at that point?
Yeah, I did.
Fuck me, man. I think
Yeah.
I just got frustrated by getting set on fire every 20 steps or whatever.
I think I just happened upon the right situation where I got a set of proper armor that I didn't even mean to, and I was just like, oh, sweet, awesome. And,
Sure, you found the tiny out of the way shop that sells the fireproof clothes at the right time.
something
Somehow.
like that.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Fucking-
And
fucking
my
piece
my
of shit
experience
game.
my experience with Elder Scrolls, I'm just like, just jump and climb until you get there. So
See, and like Skyrim came out in 2011, and it's still the best version of a game where you literally can just go wherever from the start. Like, you're not gonna run into stuff that's like, no, don't go here. You can't go over here yet, even though we said you can go anywhere. It's like, no, you want to go to the top of the big mountain right now as soon as we let you out of the intro sequence? Yeah, it's right over there. Go for it.
yeah. I mean, that's probably where my interest in Breath of the Wild came from anyway. I'm like,
Sure.
okay, here we go. But,
Have you
yeah,
seen
I see what you're
have you
saying.
seen the people modded the Breath of the Wild hang glider into Skyrim? Like, that's pretty
No,
cool.
but I
That's
want to.
that's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's all you need really. Like, you just, I don't know. It's wild. Skyrim is and remains, excuse me, one of my all-time favorite games, and unquestionably the game that I've spent the most amount of time in. I guaranteed have over 1,000 hours over this computer, my other computer, Jesse's Xbox, and our old roommate's PlayStation 3. Like,
Yeah, I've bought it. I've bought it on 3 different platforms.
yeah,
Yeah,
I got that shit the night it came out, man. I walked my ass up to
Yeah.
the GameStop in the shopping center. Was like one of 4 dudes there, and was like, "All right, I know what I'm doing for the next 24 hours." And then here we are,
I was a day of guy myself.
20 years later. No, not 20 years.
Yeah.
12 years
Getting
later.
close.
Yeah, something like that. Speaking of getting close, part 4, conclusion. Once again, I find myself at the conclusion of one of these pieces, and again I fear to make a retread. While in my previous entries I've set myself on big name games, they were mainly only big names on their platform, recently getting additional exposure due to PC ports. With this one, I'm brushing against something that is a legitimate household name. If you ask your grandma, who has never played a game in her life, to name a video game console, I bet you any money she'll say Nintendo. With the NES and Game Boy, this company basically single-handedly brought the industry back from the precipice of irrelevance after the video game crash of the early 80s, when Atari was burying copies of ET in a landfill. They were stalwarts throughout the 90s and the aughts, even as companies like Sega stumbled and burned out of the console market. Even with a machine like the GameCube that couldn't legitimately compete in hardware specs against the Xbox and PS2, they remained relevant big-name players. The Wii was at one point the highest selling console of all time, and may well still be, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not going to
My
look this up
Skyward
because
Sword
I don't
experience. That's where I played Skyward Sword, and people are like, "You played it on the Wii?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's what I had at the time."
care. Sure. That one was motion controls only, right? Like, you
Well, it had a
only
game-
had the stick,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you were just like, yeah, it was
It's
absurd.
bonkers.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound great. Still, at one point, the highest selling console of all time. The Wii U was a botch, but laid the groundwork for the Switch, a console that seems to currently enjoy a level of near ubiquity on par with the Game Boy Color in '97 or the DS in 2007. In any discussion of Nintendo properties, there's an underlying understanding that the big ones are in a class of their own. Mario doesn't get excuse me. Mario doesn't get compared to things like Halo except as a joke. Hell, Mario doesn't even get compared to Sonic anymore except as a joke. Zelda doesn't get compared to GTA. Even properties that haven't seen more than a single original release in the last decade are understood almost intrinsically to be in some way better than whatever current crop of games by other studios that do ostensibly the better thing. You could compare Ratchet and Clank to the disastrous Star Fox Dinosaurs whatever game, but if you mention Star Fox as a whole, people are going to think of the SNES or the N64 version, and that's it. And this is sort of what I'm going to take issue with here. I've often spoken of killing one's idols and heroes, the memento mori and such, how holes must be poked and nits must be picked if the medium is to progress. I believe Nintendo is guilty of this perhaps more than any other games company. They have mythologized themselves so thoroughly to their audience that the memories of the good games completely overwrite the memories of the bad games, or worse, allows the bad ones to unfairly be perceived as on par with their higher quality counterparts. They benefit from the association without having to stand on their own merits, and that's something I can't stand. It's something I think is deleterious to media and to critical thought, and I guess ultimately that's why I'm writing these things. Anyway, Breath of the Wild plays like an especially tedious Assassin's Creed now. I hope everyone is happy. Perhaps video game development will ultimately prove to be beholden to a sort of carcinization, that being the evolutionary tendency for a species to develop crab-like features on a long enough timeline. Maybe all video games will eventually evolve into some variant of Assassin's Creed, which I suppose itself was an evolution of Grand Theft Auto 3. It's the latest installment of an idea that was once revolutionary, but that has become so unbelievably bog standard as to be practically invisible in its banality, to the point that it's been mistaken for something good. Excuse me. Remember when every fucking game became some version of Grand Theft Auto 3 when that came out? Suddenly every game had carjacking vehicles and an open world. Remember when Tony Hawk's Remember when Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 was Grand Theft Auto 3 but on skateboards? Remember how this style of game is still nearly ubiquitous to the point that you don't even realize how many games are in fact GTA 3 but with X? Simpsons Hit and Run, Grand Theft Auto with The Simpsons. Assassin's Creed, Grand Theft Auto with parkour. Arkham Knight, Grand Theft Auto with Batman. Mad Max, Grand Theft Auto with Sunburn. Horizon Zero Dawn, Grand Theft Auto with robots. Red Dead Redemption, Grand Theft Auto with horses. Metal Gear Solid 5, Grand Theft Auto with ski masks. Red Faction Guerrilla, Grand Theft Auto on Mars. I could go on. Okay, just a couple more. Sleeping Dogs, Grand Theft Auto with actually good melee combat. Yakuza, Grand Theft Auto with karaoke. Shadows of Mordor, Grand Theft Auto with orcs. Saints Row, Grand Theft Auto with more Grand Theft Auto on top. There's got to be more, but I'm positive I've made my point clear.
Every Ubisoft game ever made.
Breath of the Wild ultimately does nothing exceptional or unique, and in fact does a lot of things markedly poorly. The fact that when I turned off those systems which annoyed me, I was still mostly bored by the game speaks further to the overall quality, or lack thereof. I will admit here, I did a sneaky little move there with that list of games in the last paragraph, and I did that with the intention of setting up my final point. The thing about that list of games is that I don't actually hate all of them. Mad Max and Shadow of Mordor in particular are exceptionally well done examples of how to make an open world game with urgency, without bloat, populated with interesting things and entertaining systems to engage that world with. Now imagine if you were playing Mad Max and your car kept breaking down. Imagine if you were playing Shadow of Mordor and Celebrimbor, whose name I spelled right on the first try and remembered without having to look it up when I wrote this. Fucking 360 no-scoped that name. Kept forcing you to make him omelets or he wouldn't let you use your magic when it rains or something. Even if you hadn't played those games and I told you those were the mechanics in those games, you would scoff and think that that doesn't sound very fun. So what gives Zelda a pass? In my opinion, nothing. As with all things, we must lay our heroes' tender necks on the altar of a better tomorrow and stop letting subpar entries to beloved series get passes by association. As my final closing note, I'd like to mention that Nintendo's largest outside investor as of February 2023 is the Saudi Arabian government, who owns an 8.26% share of Nintendo stock. The government of Saudi Arabia has been cited by Amnesty.org and other human rights groups for a variety of heinous violations. Thanks for tuning in. And thanks as always to the How to Kick Flip a Horse gang. Thanks to our boy Punctual Pony for proofreading, and extra special thanks to friend of the show, your boy, for hooking up this game. And of course, thank you to my good buddy Joe for letting me read at him for an hour.
No problem. So you're saying that Nintendo did 9/11?
It's not, I mean, I'm not saying it's definitively provably true that Nintendo did 9/11, but it's
8.2.6%.
there's about an 8.26% chance that they had something to do with it. I don't know. I don't write the news.
Oh boy, that was great. Yeah, it made me think about a lot of aspects of that game that I just was saying, oh, that's just part of games now. I'm used to this style of game. I'm interested on what did you think about the old flying dragon element of the old flying dragon?
I saw him once and I was like, what the hell is this? What's going on over here? And I tried to chase him down and I couldn't catch him, couldn't catch up to him or get onto him, couldn't figure out anything else to do with him, so he flew away and I never saw him again. I was like, see, now if there was more stuff like that happening in this game, that was a moment of genuine discovery, because I'm like in this world and then something completely fucking bonkers happens.
Yeah,
that's what I want from the game. Like, if you're gonna,
you can engage with flying dragon guy. There's a point once you can do the old fly up in the air thing.
Sure.
But there isn't. I mean, there is a slight side quest about it, but it doesn't, like, it could like take you to a new universe, like, but it doesn't quite get part of a main quest line ever. But it's there. But it's like, why can't that be like 150 other things that are also doing that? It's like,
right.
You know, like, yeah, like in Skyrim, like, oh shit, like it even becomes annoying in Skyrim. Like, music starts, and you're like, I don't want to do this right now. I don't want to fight this dumb dragon at this moment.
Sure.
When you look up and hear the scream, you're like, fine.
Right.
I already have 17 goddamn dragon souls.
Right. Yeah. Might as well
Yeah.
get another bag of dragon bones and scales to sell down at the blacksmith to tank another small town's economy.
Yeah, how do I carry this extra 200 things of weight to sell to this town back and forth over again to destroy them?
Sure.
But yeah, Breath of the Wild had like 10% or 60% more of that. And Skyrim had 10% less of that.
Like, I will say, to Breath of the Wild's credit, they didn't, like, it does have like the inventory size limit, but the stuff doesn't have like individual weight, which is obviously much more tedious, like in the way that Skyrim is. But Skyrim is done in such a way that you can just completely ignore that shit. Like, no one's making you pick up 20 cabbages. You're just, it's your reptile brain does that.
Yeah.
It's not the game.
My shame.
Whereas in this, it's like,
I can't leave this behind.
Right. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, I'm like, how many apples can I hold? Because I'm holding like 50 of these motherfuckers. And you're telling me I can only hold 5 swords? 5 swords that break on a regular basis? Like, get fucked. Like, let me throw apples at dudes then. You want me to go anywhere, do anything? I want to throw apples at goblins.
I want to hit him with my hot meals.
Too bad. Right. Can I inflict burning damage if I hit this man with soup? If this was a good game, the answer would be yes.
That'd be amazing if you could just cook and then dump it on someone's head.
Yeah. You make a pie, you fucking splat a pie in someone's face. You make like a Looney Tunes cartoon pie that smells so good you can float across chasms from smelling it. We need more pie-based magic in Legend of Zelda, I think.
I can't wait for you to play Tears, because there's elements of combinations of things that you can do now. Like, you can combine a sword and a ham. You can combine rocks, and you can make
I call it
weapons.
Sword ham.
Yeah, that's honestly, you can make like shields out of logs and sticks and rocks, and you can make cars out of fans.
That stuff sounds much more robust in this game, and I feel like that will lend itself better to the sort of emergent gameplay that everyone claimed that this one had.
Yeah, I think Breath of the Wild, now that I've played Tears of the Kingdom, it definitely feels like a prologue. Like the engine was just not like they, even though the game is 7 years old, right? Like it still feels rushed. Like, why aren't these extra things that are already there? Because Tears of the Kingdom is the exact same landscape. It's Hyrule. It's the same Hyrule you know from Breath of the Wild,
Right.
basically.
Didn't they add
Except for
like
like in
they added like the Underdark basically?
yeah, there's a sky islands and stuff. And
Skylands.
but there's still it's still the same. You know, you still know how to get to Kakariko Village. You still know how to get to Death Mountain and walk
Sure.
around and all that stuff. So,
Hmm.
but there's a whole lot more weird shit going on. Like the powers that you're talking about, the psychic powers from Breath of the Wild now is like kind of this necromancy that's kind of cool, and you can like phase through floors and stuff.
Hmm.
There's like different powers like that. And you can combine weapons into different things, make cars.
Sure. I've seen a good handful of vehicle like people making gliders and such.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But
I hope
yeah, no, it
I
makes
hope the
sense.
rest
Like
of the systems are less tedious. Excuse me.
there was a lot of tedium though. I had to take a break from it, and amazingly went back to play more Bethesda games because I haven't played Fallout 4 since it came out, so I restarted
Oh yeah.
playing that. Yeah.
I recently got the 100. I recently 100%ed Fallout 4. I don't think I started.
Right.
I don't think I started a new file on it, but I did get all the achievements recently.
Oh God.
That's a good game. It's not as good as New Vegas, but
No.
it's what is. It's still
Yeah,
pretty
I mean,
good.
it's so weird. Like New Vegas can be, it's definitely the most like desolate, and it's by far the most fun. But like, it's very desolate. But I feel more lonely in Fallout 4 than I ever felt playing New Vegas. But maybe it's just because Boston is lonely. But whatever.
Maybe. Yeah, I felt like the Boston map is like, I mean, for obvious reason, it's more like claustrophobic. It's much more of like a city than Las Vegas is in New Vegas. You know what I mean? Like you're like even when you're not in like Boston, like it still scans as like that area. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and for some reason it's like always late October. The seasons don't change, and then
Right.
but Ivan, that was awesome. I gave me a lot to think about in that this game that I spent so much time and gave probably would rate it in my top 10 games.
Did you even
Um,
like it at all, man?
yeah, maybe I was just
do
conditioned
I
to
even
like,
do I even like the stuff I like? That's the big
yeah, I
questions
guess
we're asking here
being
on how to kick
yeah,
flip a horse.
it's more like I was fine with being spoon fed the same experiences that I expected to the same results. So maybe it's more of like okay, well, I guess I'll watch this episode of The Simpsons for the 400th time type of feeling rather than being challenged to do anything new. So I
Right.
guess which makes sense to be the game that I chose to play during a horrible, debilitating illness. Because there's
Yeah, it's like
nothing
comfort food.
coming my way. Yeah, exactly. It's like a shitty hot dog.
Right.
Breath of the Wild.
But and and that's not to say like I'm not trying to shame anyone for eating a shitty hot dog once in a while. If I eat a shitty tofu dog every once in a while, but it's bad to eat nothing but shitty tofu dogs, you know.
Yep. Or just to
And
have COVID
I think this sort of this phenomenon of the pedigree outweighing the actual quality of the game is I think that's kind of
Yeah, that's the point.
what allows
right?
that to happen. Yeah, this familiarity shortcut, if you will. You go, oh, thing I like, and then your brain just goes, well, we like this thing, and then you kind of stop really considering it, I guess.
Yeah, that's why we got Indiana Jones 5. Thank God.
Right. That doesn't. It's been a long time since I have been less interested in something existing.
I know, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course they did another one. Huh.
I know.
I bet
Yeah.
Harrison Ford is just so tired.
Just let the man smoke weed and go.
Yeah,
die.
let him smoke weed and crash his plane as much as he wants.
I know.
Poor guy.
Oh boy. Don't ever tell
Well,
him the odds.
right. Don't ever make Harrison Ford play Breath of the Wild. He'll absolutely eviscerate you for it. Oh, I scrolled down a little further, found one more thing in my thank you conclusion. I recommend going to YouTube and checking out the Jimquisition video on the recent Tears of the Kingdom leak debacle. To hear a person with more than two brain cells to rub together and who is an actual journalist talk at greater length about some of the things that I've mentioned here. And that's it. This essay in text form will be available to download and read yourself. You can clarify, find my typos, see where I said stuff different from what I read, measure my reading comprehension, if you will. You can find that on my itch page, which is capybaras with a z.itch.io. The other Triple F Games essays are on there as well. Them, along with all of the rest of my stuff that is between $1 and $3, is on sale for the next, I believe, like week and a half still. All of it's half off right now, so you will be able to, probably by the time this video is uploaded to YouTube, be able to download this essay and others and other shit that I've written for a grand total of $4.
GiveIvanMoney.com.
And I hope you do that, and I hope you enjoy those. And
Give me money. Money me. Money now.
money now.
Money needing a lot now.
Is that playing?
Yes.
Did we all hear Money Me? Okay.
Yes, we did.
One more.
Money, please.
All right, check that out. This video is going to be up on YouTube for how to kickflip a horse. You can see me and Joe and several of our other buddies on there playing role-playing games such as Pathfinder and the other one on a near weekly basis.
That's right. You can find me on Friendster, Makeout Club, and Yahoo Forums.
Hell yeah. All right, that was a great time. Thanks again, Joe, and thanks everyone out there for watching or reading. Enjoy the beach, if you will.